Bryan Beck, TradeStreetPost.com, a blog dedicated to the Charlotte Bobcats, but Bryan follows the NBA very close on many, many teams and many levels, and of course the playoffs, which he joined me to talk about with the Thunder and the Heat series getting ready to get underway. Bryan shares his thoughts and more on the NBA playoffs right here on the Sports Buffet podcast.
Enjoyed talking to Bryan Beck the first time so much, TradeStreetPost.com. He rejoins us to, this time, just kind of talk playoffs. We'll get him back to talk NBA draft in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll even give him the title of the Sports Buffet's NBA expert. And Bryan, playoffs have been great so far. Let's kind of review the last two series with the Heat and the Celtics and the Spurs and the Thunder. Spurs, who have been rolling right along, just kind of had a bad time to go cold, and the Thunder picked a good time to get hot. What did you see with that series?
I think the key to that series was you just saw a young team in Oklahoma City kind of grow up real fast. When they fell down 2-0, I thought they were in big trouble, but the way they kind of came back in Game 3 and won convincingly, I think was kind of what gave them the confidence that this team might be ready. You got to give Scott Brooks a lot of credit in that series too, because he made some pretty good adjustments after they got swept the first two games in San Antonio. As far as how he played the pick and roll with Parker and Duncan, I thought that they were helping too much early in that series, and you could see they were leaving some of the Spurs perimeter players open. And Green and Jackson and Ginobili were just killing them with three-point shooting. So I think there was a lot of adjustments that Brooks made there. He made, he kind of made Parker beat them with his jump shot a little bit, and I think that's kind of his weakness. And then offensively, Oklahoma City shot the ball really well after the first couple of games. And you knew even though they lost the first two games, they were still scoring a lot of points against San Antonio. And I don't think that the Spurs had the athleticism to stop them. It was just a matter of whether or not the Thunder could slow the Spurs down at all, and they were able to do that. And effectively got them back in the series and eventually won it.
Are the Spurs done in terms of being serious contenders without doing some major work in the offseason?
It's tough to say. I think that they could have another year or two left. They still have Parker and Ginobili, and they have got a couple of nice young players with Green and Leonard to fill in there. So it's a matter of whether or not they can plug the holes. I feel pretty certain that they'll sign Duncan back for at least one more season. Then they had these guys, Steven Jackson has 1 year left, but they had the guys like DL and some of the role players. They got to figure out what they could do. I'm hearing they could be in the market for Garnett. If they were able to land Garnett, I think that would definitely be a move that could put them right back in the thick of things.
Let's talk about the other series with the Celtics and the Heat. First off, I think if the Celtics were going to win that series, they really needed to get Game 6 after stealing Game 5 at Miami, where the Celtics, in Game 5, that stat is phenomenal. I think like 9-0 or something in the series. But I would say the Celtics probably have to tear it down before they can build it back up. But let's talk about what you saw in the series first off.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. Game 6 was their chance, and they missed it. Typically, when you see the underdogs have a chance to clinch in Game 6, usually if they don't get it done, they don't do real well on the road in Game 7. And in that game, I think what happened there was, they just ran into an outstanding performance from LeBron James. He just wasn't going to be denied in Game 6. That's kind of the LeBron James that everyone's been wanting to see. It's what he's capable of doing. He's the best player in the league. And he just had one of those nights where the ball just went in every time he shot it. Overall, I know the last time we talked, we sort of talked about how important Chris Bosh was to that team. And I think you could see that in Game 6 and Game 7 when he returned. That they just have he just have no weapons at all outside of the big three, really. And I think Wade and LeBron are really struggling to carry their weight. And Bosh, especially in Game 7, was just phenomenal. He makes it hard to keep your big guys inside. because he can beat you from the perimeter so easily. And, I don't think they would have won that series had Boston not come back, frankly. And from the Boston side of things, they just ran out of gas in that series. You can kind of clearly see it in Game 6, especially toward the end of Game 7. That was an older team. They're kind of beat up. Not a lot of depth. I know the Avery Bradley injury, I think, bothered them a lot. He was their best perimeter defender. He was giving them good minutes at the 2. So when he went down toward the end of the Philly series, that team just didn't have enough depth, I think, to grind out a 2 consecutive 7-game series.
Who's out of the teams that made the playoffs and maybe made decent runs, who's in the most trouble in terms of they could really be, I don't want to say picking in the lottery next year, but they really need to do a lot, whether it be in free agency or get lucky in the draft?
I think what Boston does is going to be interesting. Ray Allen and Garnett are both free agents. I'm not sure if Boston is going to be inclined to try to sign them back to come back for another year or two, or if they're going to be looking to restart a little bit. I think that's some other holes they'll have to fill, too. I know Jeff Green's coming back from heart surgery. Don't know for sure if he'll be back next year. Brandon Bass can opt out. There's a lot of different ways that team could go. I could see them trying to retain some of those guys and make another run or two. I know I kind of heard Bob Ryan from the Boston Globe talking that he did not think, in his opinion, that they would probably try to retain Garnett or Allen. So, if they let those guys walk, they still have Pierce and Rondo, but they don't have a lot around them. So
but
that could be a team that could.
Do you keep both Pierce and Rondo?
Well, they could try to trade them. I think that they would keep them and then try to kind of build around them, because the next thing that they're going to have, even if they didn't sign Garnett and Allen, is they're going to have a ton of cap room to spend. They'll basically just have Pierce and Rondo under contract. So, those two could be good enough bait, I think, to get someone to come there and sign.
But, looking at the free agent list like I did the other day, the only problem is, to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the free agent class doesn't look strong at all unless you need a point guard. And with the Celtics having Rondo, they don't need a point guard.
Yeah, it's not the best year for free agents. Like I said, I'll be interested to see what they do. I don't think they're going to trade Pierce. I think he's been there since the beginning. I think he's a guy that they're going to want to retire as Celtic. They could try to flip Rondo for a couple of pieces, but a point guard of his caliber is hard to find. Could you flip him for something that would end up being as good as he does? I think that might be challenging for them to do. They do have 2 first-round picks in this draft. It's a pretty deep draft. They may be able to fill a couple needs there. And my gut tells me that they'll probably get Garnett back, too. So if they get Garnett back, get Bradley healthy again, plug a couple of holes in free agency, not with big moves, but, just kind of plug a couple of holes, they could be competitive again. I think it's going to be difficult for them to be able to compete with Miami and Chicago if both of those teams are healthy.
Yeah, I personally, my gut, which is a little bit bigger than yours, I think, tells me that Garnett would go to Chicago. I think that Garnett as a piece in Chicago would help them out. He's from Chicago. I just see Garnett going to Chicago. But again, my gut also tells me too, and you're kind of an old school guy like me, so you'll remember this. I mean, a lot of people argue that the Celtics held on to Bird and McHale and Parrish too long, and if they had broken up one of the big three, things might not have gotten so bad. Obviously, what happened with Len Bias back in the day didn't help, and then Reggie Lewis's untimely passing also didn't help. But, the Celtics kind of put themselves in a bad hole in the 90s and everything by holding on to aging superstars. So why do it with Pierce?
Well, I don't know what you could get for him. He's not spring chicken either.
Right.
So, the question becomes, what could you get enough for him to kind of make it worth your while?
Right.
I have a hard time thinking the only player they have that could get something for is Rondo. And they could probably get, probably a king's ransom for him. But I don't know what else you do then. If you flip Rondo for that, then you kind of got Pierce stuck there rebuilding by himself again, kind of before they get the rest of the big three. He may be too old to swing that too. They're kind of in a tough spot there.
Have you ever heard rumors of the Rondo Bynum deal for straight up?
I have heard rumors of that. I don't think that would happen. It's one of those deals that I'm not sure that either team would really want to do, or really would have kind of the guts to pull the trigger on.
Who wins in that deal?
It kind of depends. I mean, the general rule is you don't trade a big for a small. Centers like Bynum are awfully hard to come by these days. I think we both feel like he's got some maturity issues and, some things he's got to work through. But in reality, a legitimate 7-footer with his skill set's awfully hard to come by. Point guards like Rondo aren't a dime a dozen either, but I don't know that the Lakers would kind of have the guts to pull the trigger on that. And I'm thinking salary-wise, they would have to get something else from Boston, too. I don't think Rondo would be enough salary-wise to make that deal work.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I kind of think, I hear what you're saying about you don't trade a big for a small, but I almost think that Rondo for Bynum, who really gets better, because you're taking away the point from the Celtics. I mean, you could go get a free agent, but, it's not going to be anybody better than Rondo. And then if you're the Lakers, you improve your point guard, but you really deplete a front line that's already not super anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. I don't really know who wins, and I don't know that either team will pull the trigger because I don't know that you make either team better necessarily. I think both teams are kind of built. The Lakers aren't really built around a point guard anyway.
Right.
And the Celtics have been kind of built around Rondo. So if you flip them, I think style-wise, both teams might struggle, actually.
If the Heat don't beat the Thunder, does Eric Spoelstra come back to coach Miami?
I kind of think that he probably doesn't. He's got, if you ask around the league, he's a pretty well-respected guy, so I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. But, the thing that I kind of struggle with Spoelstra is, he's got two of the best players on the planet on his team. And through 2 seasons, they still, to me, haven't figured out how to play together that well. And it just seemed to think that if you've got 2 players of that caliber who tend to like playing together, at least it seems that way, that a good coach could figure out a way to make that work a little bit better. I don't think that he's as good at adjustments as an X and O guy either. If he kind of wants their offense, I don't think they run much of an offense. It's a very ISO-driven offense. If I were the Heat, I would look to upgrade coach if I had an opportunity, because the years are limited in how many titles you can win, even with LeBron and Wade. And if they were to go down in this series, I think that they need to look closely to see if they could get somebody else to come in there.
Who's your guy to come in there?
The Phil Jackson rumors have been floating around. I don't know if I'm not sold that he wants to come back and coach again, but someone like him or Jerry Sloan would be a good bet. I think it's got to be someone who can manage those egos a little bit. It's a different game when you're coaching a couple of superstars like that. I think it's tough for a younger coach to get the respect of players like that. But either one of those I think would do well there. They're probably not the only examples, but I think you go with a veteran guy who's won titles before.
So you really think Phil Jackson could do well in Miami?
I think he can. His history says so. I really have my doubts whether he wants to coach again or whether health-wise he can coach again. But I think that would be, Phil Jackson's one of those guys that he would get their full attention, I think.
That's a lot. That's a lot of egos in the house, though.
Yeah, but there's no bigger egos than Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. If you can deal with Kobe Bryant and Shaq together, I think you could deal with Wade and LeBron.
Yeah, okay. I'd never thought about it that way. That's why I bring you on here, Brian, to give me new perspective as well. So, Miami or Oklahoma City, who you got?
I like Oklahoma City, but I don't feel really good about it. I would take them in 6, probably if I had to guess. It's interesting. Straight up, I like the Thunder better. They're a more athletic team. Around they're deeper. They play with a lot of energy. They can beat you a lot of different ways. They're going to have home court too, which I think will be key in this series. The only question is, it's one of those teams. It's one of the situations where you have one team that has some experience there, but hasn't quite got over the hump. Especially talking with LeBron, and especially hasn't got over the hump to win a title. Then one team has just never been there at all. They're basically 23 years old and younger, everybody on the team. So I think it's going to come down to who handles the pressure better. It's a big stage for Oklahoma City. They've never been here before. I'm not sure how they'll respond to it. And Miami, they were here last year, but they didn't play very well, and it looked a little too big for them at times. So I'm not quite sure who's going to respond to it. I think it's going to come down ultimately to how well LeBron James plays. If he plays kind of like he did in the Boston series, especially the last few games, I think we have a real shot. But if you look at the overall talent Oklahoma City has, Westbrook ought to kill Miami at the point. Whether Chalmers or Cole or whoever they put on him, he ought to have a field day. Durant can score on anybody. Harden has been, he comes off the bench, but he's a starter. He's going to have close games. And then you've got the inside combination with Perkins and Ibaka. I think complement each other well. I would do Oklahoma City in that just based on their depth, and they have a couple of more weapons, but it'll ultimately probably come down to whether or not LeBron can take it over and win.
Do you see Durant guarding LeBron?
I think he's going to have to some, but I don't think Brooks is going to put Durant on LeBron the whole time. I think that'll wear him out a little bit, and they're going to need Durant's offense. I would expect to see Cephalosha on LeBron a fair bit too. The only lineup that worries me from an Oklahoma City standpoint is they tend to go small and play Fisher and Westbrook from time to time. Depending on when he does that, it would be good if he did that when Wade and LeBron were out. But I would expect to see Cephalosha on him, on LeBron some. And they could even play around with putting Ibaka on him some. That wouldn't surprise me either. Especially Miami, if they go small some and put LeBron at the 4, I think he could see Ibaka on him. He could challenge his shot a little bit. I'm not sure if he's strong enough, but I expect Brooks to mix it up a little bit and kind of see what works.
Final question for you, as always. We appreciate your time. We'll get you back to talk draft here in a week or two. I think about a year or two ago on Inside the NBA show, which I love, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith were talking, and Kenny Smith said in about 3 years, Kevin Durant would be the best player in the NBA, and Charles replied back, what's he going to do? Kill LeBron. Is LeBron James still the best player in the league, or does Kevin Durant really have a shot at ousting him from that perch?
That's a tough question. It depends on what angle you're looking at it from. LeBron is the most talented player in the league. We could argue historically, if you just come, based on his size and his skill set, he's the best athletic specimen I've ever seen. He can go inside, outside. He passes the ball really well. He defends really well. The only question with him is, does he kind of have that alpha male trait? Can he close out games? Can he be dominant? Durant, probably not as polished. He's a bit younger, so you'll have to give him some more time. But he's a better pure scorer than LeBron is. He's a better shooter. He's got one of the best strokes in the league already. He's been working on his game too, as far as his post game. He's a better defender, I think, than he gets credit for. But they're kind of different kind of players. I struggle with that one too. It's a very difficult question because it's whether or not it's. If you ask me, I will tell you LeBron's a better player. But if you ask me for which player I'd want the ball in their hands at the last shot, I'd take Durant.
What if you were starting a team? Who would you take?
You can't go wrong either way. I think I would take Durant. But man, that's a tough call. Just because I'm trying to find a guy who's not afraid to win you a game at the end, and not afraid to take that big shot. I would go Durant, but you really couldn't go wrong either way.
When we look back in maybe 5 to 10 years, obviously we all know about the Michael Jordan, Sam Bowie NBA draft. Does the Durant, Greg Oden get that much criticism too, or is it a little bit different?
I think it's already getting a lot of attention, and it's kind of tough on Odom because it's been pretty much entirely injury-related. I mean, he's had 3 microfracture surgeries already. But I think it's already to the point where there's a pretty good chance Odom's not going to play another game in the NBA.
I would agree with you on that, yeah.
Yeah, he's already announced he's out for the entire 2012-2013 season. And, Durant led the league in scoring 3 years in a row. It's definitely Portland fans they probably ask themselves every day, what could have been. They had a team that's kind of crumbling apart now, but, they have a team with Aldridge and Brandon Roy, who's sort of been forced to retire medically as well. So they caught a lot of bad breaks there. That could have been a championship-type team if they would have took Durant instead.
Brian, as always, we appreciate your time. Like I said, we'll get you back on to talk draft shortly, and enjoy the playoffs.
All right, you too. Thanks.